Hi comic fans, I'm Joe and welcome again to Anachronic Comics. So I know you're used to watching a live comic book crowd show every month towards the end of the month. But this month the wife and I are off on a vacation, a short vacation, see some friends. And so no live comic book crowd today, but I went back to one of our old videos where each one of us gave 3 really good points to both newbies and current collectors and returning collectors with respect to how we would change our comic book buying and collecting habits if we knew then what we know now. So I've culled through that and I've picked out 6 really good ones, including a couple that were kind of like joking. Well, I was joking around a little bit, but I kind of meant it. So I think it's really good. So I've cut it down to less than 20 minutes. So stick around, watch it, give me a comment, let me know what you think, and we'll follow up on that real soon.
Anachronic.
And it is fostering relationships. If you're going to be in the hobby for a long time and grow, and your collection's going to grow and you're going to advance and go for bigger books, the community is real and you should build good relationships. Doug Bratton's in here. He posted, I'm going to throw Doug Bratton and the Bratton brothers right under the bus. They posted on Instagram an ASM 316 newsstand with a Mark Jewelers insert that they posted it, and I Instagram messaged them and said, they didn't say it's available. I just said, I'm interested if it ever becomes available. And because of our good relationship, we were able to, he was very active in sending me photos and explaining what he believed the grade might be. And we already know each other. I trust him. I trust his grading. He knows who I am. We weren't concerned about sending money via whatever Venmo, PayPal. So it pays dividends to foster relationships. You have follow-on transactions where negotiations get easier. So that's my third tip. It's huge, and your reputation in the community will open up avenues. People know what I'm interested in, what my goal is. And Wayne, for example, texts me all the time, signed ASM books. And I'm like, I have that one already. And he's not deterred.
Sorry, Stephanie. Sorry.
Matt Woods and Wayne will spend my money and Stephanie's money faster than you would know. But
hey, you send me a post today. You're trying to spend my money.
I am. I'm sending Matt Woods Conan original art. I am going to get Matt Woods to buy one of those pages. But that is fostering relationships. Joe,
I see some room in that blue wall there.
Yeah,
there is.
Joe sent me one of his subscription mailers, originals. I'm like, I'll buy one, and he sent it to me. So it's huge.
So I'm a newbie, so I've only been collecting for 6 months. So I barely collected anything. But if I had one thing to tell myself, I'd say double pause at the counter and take a good second to go through your pile and make sure you really want what you're going to get. Because sometimes there's FOMO and you realize when you get home you should not have bought that, and you're like, what was I thinking? And then there's other times though you're like, I've been thinking about that for the past week and I need to go get it. So I went and got a Scarlet Witch soda can here that I was thinking about for the past week.
You got a Scarlet Witch soda can.
I did, and I love it. But
Okay.
it was one of the things I paused the counter. I was like, I don't want it now. I'm going to stop and think. So that's one of the things I would do. And then there was a Doctor Strange at the LCS that was really nice. And
Comic book, a Doctor Strange comic book, his origin. Yes.
Yes. And so I asked the owner about it. I was like, I saw that and now it's gone. And I was kind of getting FOMO about that. I'm like, why was it gone now? And he's like, oh, I took it down because it was so popular. Everyone was asking about it. So I took it down because now he got FOMO and he was going to keep it himself.
All right. Well, we're turning it over to Wayne.
All right. I actually thought about this for a fair bit. I felt kind of like it's one of those sort of rabbit holes you can go down and really think about the choices you've made and almost if you think too hard about it, you're going to start to kind of kick yourself and feel bad about some of the choices you've made. And so I tried not to get that deep into it. But one of the things I thought about was my early collecting life. So I started collecting maybe when I was bought maybe my first book with my own money when I was like 10. And I collected right up till I started university. And in that time I amassed 4,000 or 5,000 books. And I was a regular every week at the comic store. And so it's like, what would I go back and sort of tell myself, the young myself, if you could go back and do it over again, what would you do differently? And I think I would have invested in some key books. That seems like a no-brainer in today's market, but I mean, I remember going into my local comic book store, the biggest comic book store in Toronto, Silver Snail Comics, and they always had a great wall behind the cash, and everything was up, and there's all Silver Age, and there's Golden Age, and these things were, back in the 80s, they were, $100, $200, $300. You can get a really nice Iron Man one for like $75. But for, a teenager who had pocket money, that was a lot of money to spend. In retrospect, instead of spending money on a bunch of things that, although they were fun, and I had a good collecting life, like I did a lot of things. I could play Dungeons and Dragons. So that was an expensive hobby. Buying all the books, all the figures, all the dice, modules. It was expensive. I spent a lot of money on that. Posters, figures, Japanese robots. Like if I took all that money and put it towards key comic books, I'd be sitting much prettier right now than I am. And I would go back and tell myself, forget all the other stuff, pick certain books and buy those books. So that would be number one. Be smarter about my collecting.
So when I first started thinking about this, I said to myself, I'm going to think back to when I was a kid, right? But I probably have some ideas about when I got back into the hobby. I don't know, whenever it was, about 10 or some odd years ago. So here's there's a bit of levity here, but it's true. All right. Here are the three things that I would tell myself to do as a kid in the early 60s buying comic books. My first thing that I would do is tell myself to buy as many copies of AF-15 as I could find. Okay?
Yes.
That's serious.
Smart.
The second thing would be to make sure, I think the first ASM I have is number 5, then I have number 9 through whatever. I had a couple of videos on it. I would make sure I'd have the ones that I'm missing, right? And as part of that, 2B, I'd buy every Marvel comic I could find. All right, because that's what's in demand right now. And the third thing would be not to just throw my comics in the corner or whatever else and just don't care about them, but actually try to at least, I mean, there were no bags and boards that I know of in that time, but at least try to keep them in some semblance of order so that they would be in potentially better shape than they are today. Of course, no one knew, and Matt, you remember Roy Thomas told us that. I mean, who the heck knew that these things would be worth any money? At the time when he and I were kind of involved early on in putting this stuff together, and you just didn't know. You just enjoyed them. They were fun, But as a fourth that I'm throwing in there is that when my mother told me to get rid of half my comics, I would have just told her no. I don't know what would have happened at that point in time, but I think I would have put up a little bit more of a fight potentially. Now, so that's a little bit of levity, but there's some truth to that. I mean, if I knew today, or if I knew then what I know today, I would seriously do those things, right?
Yeah.
So the second thing I think I would do is something that I've been doing now more lately, and that is focusing on things that I like rather on things that people, quote unquote, say that I should have,
Yeah.
So yeah, what I wouldn't mind having, like, I don't know, I won't even say SM15, but I wouldn't mind having, maybe the Hulk 181 or something like that. Yeah, and maybe if I come across something like that, I might consider buying it. But instead, I'm going to take a look at some of the characters that I liked, going back to the 60s and the 70s. And I've started to do that, starting to look for those characters, but looked at and seeing them even beyond that time frame. So for example, something like the Blue Beetle. I have some of the Charlton original Blue Beetle comic books. I have some of the Ted Cord Charlton Blue Beetle comic books. And I always liked the character because just simply it was something that hit home with me. So now I have the entire first DC series of Blue Beetle as well. So what I've done now is start to focus on characters that I like, and many of them are B-listers or C-listers. James Gunn will probably have them in his next Peacemaker a TV show or something like that, because not a lot of people care about them, but I do. So I started getting them, and the good thing about it was, other than sometimes a #1 or some special one, you can get them relatively cheap. And those are ones where people might sell like almost entire runs of them. Captain Carrot by Roy Thomas. Always liked the character. Had some of that. I knew a little bit about it, And then what I do is I went out and some guy was selling 1 to 25. So it was an easy pickup, Started reading through. Then I found out that there was a couple of other appearances, and I started looking for those. To me, that's very fulfilling. I don't know that anybody else cares about that, but I do. So I think focusing and Master Bless, you always say, collect what you like or what you love and whatever else, and I think that's part of what I was not really doing. I was getting caught up in all the spec stuff and this and that and all of that. And it was taking away from my pleasure really with respect to that. So I stopped doing that. And if I knew about this or I thought about it back in 2007 or 8, when I started up again, that's what I would be doing.
So perfect segue to my #2. Do your research. Oh man. So I'm really big into a lot of the kind of weird, obscure type of comic books, like the ash cans, like the different types of things. Sorry, Matt, I think I've hit all your points.
It's all good.
One of my purchases I have made before, I thought I had a great deal. And this kind of ties to you, Steve. This is probably my one and only Stan Lee signed yellow label comic book. And I thought I got a smoking hot deal. So I wanted to show it here because I wanted to see if you guys knew or see something that I did not see. So here we have my Journey into Mystery #83. Do you know?
It's a facsimile or
Wow. Was it the golden record?
What's missing is the 12 cent right here.
Oh,
Golden
yeah.
record reprint?
So this is a golden record reprint. I thought I got a smoking hot deal when I got this book. Yeah, label 8.5, very, very early. I didn't do my research. And to Stephanie's point, any sort of, I guess, either you're hungry or any sort of inebriation on purchasing books is not a good idea. So I would say do your research is definitely my second point. I love this book. It's a great book, but it's not the book that I thought I bought, honestly, right? It's gained so much value since I bought it, and I'm glad I have it in my collection. But it's kind of one of those books that are like, all right, if something needs to leave my collection, then this is okay. So I think that's one of those things. So that's my second point of what I would have told myself when I started recollecting. Do your research.
Now, my number 2, though, okay? Now, again, I think it was you, Stephanie. You brought this up, okay? FOMO. FOMO is a real thing, okay? And where you see something, you're like, oh, I'm going to try to get this because I've been looking at it or, it caught your eye. Now, I'm not against FOMO in the sense that I want to get that book. But if you're willing to look around, you're going to find a good deal. Don't overspend because of FOMO, okay? Because you can want something and you go look for it, nothing wrong with that. But sometimes you see somebody overprice it. They post on eBay or something, and you're like, oh, I gotta get it. Well, there's really no need to, because this is a big world. There's a lot of people out there. They're trying to get, move things so they can buy a bigger book. Just take your time, wait, and that book will eventually be out there at a price that, you're more willing to pay for it, okay? Because I have overpaid for books and then just been sick about it afterwards. Like, why would I spend that much money for this book that probably I could have waited? Or when you do see it at a different price, then you're kicking yourself. So my second thing I would say to myself, never overspend because of FOMO.
One of the things I was thinking about based on something Alan said and Matt sort of reiterated, talking about the hobby, letting people know that you collect, getting it out there, not being ashamed of it, not being, worried people are going to look at you funny because you collect, funny books. I mean, when I left my last job, I said to a lot of people on the way out, now that's something I do is I collect comics. And I'm still waiting to hear from one person who's cleaning out her husband's collection. Like they're cleaning out their locker and waiting to hear back from them. He stopped collecting 25 years ago. They're in their 60s. He's got a bunch of books and I can't wait to get my hands on seeing what's in there. But only because I said, by the way, I do comics. And they're like, oh, we have comics. But the thing I wanted to add was, if you're going out to do things like you're at a garage sale and you don't see comics, ask, do you have comics? If you're at a flea market and you see somebody's got toys and do you have comics? They may have stuff that they're not bringing out, putting on the table. They may have. If you have that conversation with sellers or just whatever, and you bring up comics, you may be surprised to find out they have things that they didn't think that would sell, or they weren't thinking of selling at that moment, that they're like, oh, maybe do you want to look at them? I'll go get them. They're in the house and they'll bring them out to you. And you never know what kind of deals and great books you may score that you never would have known. And so always talk about it. It's really important. I agree.
All right, guys. Thanks to everybody who showed up. We really appreciate it. If you thought it was good, tell your friends about it. It'll be on replay. So I was right. Right? Those are really, really good points. Thanks for watching. And if you want to see the entire video, click here. And if you want to watch other episodes of Comic Book Crowd, which I think are all terrific, click here. Be well, and I'll see you soon.